morning. My name is Vinita Chaudhry, and I am an intern at Empire State Pride Agenda in New York City this summer. I am a rising senior at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And thank you. And the project that I worked on this summer was a New York State transgender resource guide. So it was really intended to be sort of a one-stop shop for transgender New Yorkers, covering a number of different services in different regions of the state. So it was really a brainchild of the New York State Health and Human Services Network, which is made up of about 55 organizations across the state of New York. And they do a whole bunch of different things. Most of them provide health services, and they have a transgender issues committee that came up with this project, and I was called on as an intern to do it, and I was really excited to be a part of this project. So a little bit of background information about the state of New York. It's much bigger than a lot of people would think. And it was really interesting for me to see, as someone who's not native to New York, where the resources were really divided. So that tiny little green area right there is where New York City is, and that is where all of the resources are concentrated, basically. So that is where transgender people can really find the most resources, whereas in the top dark green corner up there in North Country, there's pretty much a lack of resources all around. So it was really interesting for me to see and notice how the resources were divided among the state. And it was helpful, I think, for a lot of activists for the different organizations in the network to see where they needed to do work and things like that. So in terms of the other regions, Albany, where the capital is, that's another area where Pride Agenda is located. And there are some good resources there, but it still needs work. And the western region, where Buffalo and Rochester are, so basically all the major urban areas in the state had some good resources. But all around, there needs to be more work. But New York City is sort of setting the trend for transgender resources. So the setup of the website, there's about 22 sections total. So there's 18 on the main page, and then another few sections for community, for providers, and for education services. And they're divided and organized a little bit differently. Some of the sections are divided by region. Some of them are divided by the type of services. As you can see, for providers section, there's general trans health resources, HIV and AIDS resources, and training opportunities for providers. Yeah, so it's a little bit different in different sections of the site. So some important takeaways for me for working on this project have been that I was able to gather resources. Instead of sort of trying to start from scratch in any way, I was able to recognize the work that had been done across the state and really be able to applaud some great organizations that might not have been recognized previously for the ways that their staff had been trained on LGBT issues and specifically on trans issues. Another important thing was looking at the division of resources and the concentration of resources, not only regionally like I just talked about, but also the ways in which there are trans resources for things like health and mental health, and those are some areas that are strong and growing, but there are also some areas that definitely need work, including housing and shelter, prison and reentry services, immigration, and legal services. And for those of us who were in the trans policy session yesterday, that was something that was really relevant on the national agenda as well. So I think that was something that was really important for me to learn as a future activist in this world. So some of the next steps for the site are really to fill in the gaps that are missing. There's a lot of regions that still need more resources, although it's obviously hard when those resources might not already exist, but there's still things I'm looking and digging to find. And I'm also working on marking certain resources, so putting signs by each of the services to say whether they're available for low-income folk, whether they're disability accessible, whether they have services available in multiple languages, and whether they're available for people of color or ethnicity-specific resources. And then, of course, making the site a little bit more visually accessible and visually stimulating, because right now it's a little bit boring. But so we're working on that. And we're expecting a rollout of the site in the end of the summer, beginning of September. And if you're interested, you can check it out. It's nytransguide.org. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Equality Federation for this incredible opportunity to be an intern this summer, and to the Empire State Pride Agenda for being an amazing workplace. Thank you so much.